Good morning, everybody. Pleased to meet you. I'm Thierry Webel. I'm the chief of the department, which name is Service Transformation and Integration, Digital Integration, okay, which manage a great number of projects in the city of Paris. Okay, and
hello everyone. I'm John Harper. I work for Thierry. I'm an engineer and software developer.
Hello, my name is Eduardo Romero. Work in Zaragoza. City Council is a little small public administration, local public administration, and we use open source mainly in desktop. I stay here to talk about this.
okay.
For a long time. For a long time. Ago, 10 years. 10 years.
And my name is Camilla. I'm from Aarhus, and that's not. I'm Camilla. I'm from Aarhus. It's not a large city, but it's a city anyways. And I work in the municipality on a project called Open Source in the municipality of Aarhus. So that's it.
My name is Niels, and I'm from Aarhus as well. And I work as a project manager on a daily basis, and is involved in this project called Open Source Aarhus as well, and have been involved in other open source projects as well. So.
I'm Gabriele Ruffatti from Engineering Group, that is the largest services and software company in Italy. I'm the chief of the Open Source Competency Center and also of the Big Data Competency Center. And I'm also a board member of OWT.
You do work with local governments?
I work with local government, and I can share my thoughts about smart cities and big data, something like this that could be helpful, and is very connected with open source software, of course.
Okay. Fabien Cauchy, I'm in charge of public sector at CGI, which is a small startup based in Canada somewhere. And I work for local government and public sector for 15 years now. I'm quite involved in open source software, and basically for the city of Paris recently.
Good morning, I'm Stéphane Laurier from W2. I'm the CTO of the consortium since last summer, and I've been involved in various open source projects in the past.
My name is Wenju Wu. I'm from Beihang University of Beijing, China. Personally, I participate in a lot of open source projects. Currently, we are working on the called Open edX, which is an open source project for massive online learning. Also, we have students open source SARS. Three talks, two from my colleagues about open source activities in China.
You?
Hello, I'm Marcos Almeida. I'm from Softeam. It's a French company and services company. And we have some open source projects and we work with some cities. So I'm here just for curiosity to see what you guys are doing and to see what can happen.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's get going.
The city of Paris has an extended use of open source software, like you can see in different IT specialties. You can see the different name of the open source products. If you ask a question, you can see that there is some business software, IT development software, Lutes notamment, some middleware softwares too, infrastructure tools, test and deploy, and management for infrastructure structures too. Okay, fine.
Rulers, what do they mean?
Ça c'est. C'est pour les curseurs. En fait, on les a pas enlevés.
Yes, well, we are currently working for the city
City of Paris in order to
You have to repeat what he says in the
enhance
microphone.
open source use in the
The microphone.
IT
Ah.
department for all the departments of the City of Paris. So the first one is the use of open source software in the City of Paris, and the second one, the lower one, is the potential of open source software in the near future. So basically, we are currently working for Thierry in order to see what are the opportunities to develop open source software in the different fields of the IT department in order to accelerate business.
And green is much?
Yeah,
Yeah.
green is better.
Yes. Okay.
As you can see, oh, ça avance trop vite là. As you can see, the City of Paris producing or co-producing various open source software. The first one is for e-education platform Open, which name is OpenENT. It's a digital workspace for education community, teachers, families, students, and they can share information in this digital platform. The second one is the development of public tendering platform called EPM. EPM is an open source platform for public procurement or e-procurement. Okay. And the main is the Java web portal and framework Lutes. And John Yon will talk to you about it. Sorry.
I'm gonna get the microphone.
Exactly.
Thank you. So I'm a software developer working on Lutes. Lutes was started almost 15 years ago, and it started as a CMS and a web portal. But now it has become more than that. It has become a framework to develop your own portals and own business applications. It was possible to make it into such a framework because from the very beginning, Lutes was made as a very modular platform. So the architecture is based on a core and plugins. So, for example, if you want a wiki on your portal, you can install the plugin to add this functionality. So it was made, it started in 2001, so it has more than 10 years experience. And where this really comes into play is that we try to keep things simple, and we were able to see during the years what was too much effort, what was not worth it, and what was really worth it. Lutes is based on solid open source software, so it's written in Java, and it runs in any servlet container application server. And uses libraries and frameworks that are very, very known. So, for example, Spring. So it's a lot of the Java world, but also, since it's a website, it uses HTML technologies and CSS frameworks, such as Twitter Bootstrap. It uses Maven to manage builds. Lutes was very early an adopter of Twitter Bootstrap to address the problems of responsive designs. So now it's fully responsive both on the front office and back office interfaces. And more recently it's been really tuned to be able to be used with tools for continuous delivery. So it makes it a very, very good framework to develop your website portal. Lutes has an ecosystem of users. You can see here, and also software companies. So yeah, Météo France was a big pioneer in using Lutes. All the other ones are reported to. And there are also a number of software companies that know how to work with Lutes, and that you can contract to help you build your Lutece solution if the standard version doesn't fit all your needs. Okay. So short slide for numbers about Lutece. Currently there are about 10 people working at the City of Paris as the core team developing Lutece. The project has about 500,000 single lines of codes of Java code, so that's not including HTML or other helper, not Java. At the City of Paris, we use Lutece to run about 200 projects. So some are simple websites which use the CMS features to inform the public. Some are administrative procedures. So the citizens from Paris can fill out forms and see the procedures evolving through the website. And some are complex business applications, for example, to manage the localization of problems in the street and managing the workflow to dispatch the request to different people working at the City of Paris and waiting for their answer and providing an answer to the user or to the people working in these areas. Currently, Lutece has 400 plus components, which we call Lutece plugins, which, for example, when I cited the example of the wiki, provide functionality to a portal. And currently, we run more than 500 instances of Lutece. So this is this is among production, testing, integration, and development. So we're a small team running a lot of instances because we have built the tools to be able to manage this kind of numbers. There are also instances of Lutece outside the City of Paris, mainly built by the companies that were on the previous slide, for example, other cities or other big websites. Finally, documentation and resources about Lutece. So Lutece is a free software, an open source software. So all the code is going on GitHub. We have an organization on github.com/Lutece platform. Another organization is being developed for everything that is really focused on the public sector. So it's the second one, Lutece-sector-public. It's in French for now. There are Twitter feeds to keep in touch and know about development in Lutece. And you can also get some information on the official website or see it in action directly from the nightly builds, from the continuous integration at the demo site. Developer documentation is available, and finally wiki, which is the plugin, the wiki plugin from Lutece. You can see it in action also, documenting various aspects of Lutece at this address. If you have any questions on Lutece.
How is it funded, this project? Is it Paris that funds this project, keeps it being developed, or how do you do that? And the governance aspect as well. Does it?
Paris was in the origin of the project Lutece, and today the development team is in Paris with an IT society company which help us to maintain and develop this product.
And from the point of view, so the question was how is the project funded and what is the governance? And so from the point of view of the governance, I'd say about 90% or 95% of the code comes from the City of Paris. We do have some small contributions from other people, but the governance is mainly from the core team working at the City of Paris.
Totally free and open for you.
Is it published under a specific license?
It uses a BSD license, which we call the Lutes license, which is just a 3-clause BSD license.
Any technical difference between the PAX and the LifeRay framework?
So the question is there a technical difference between Lutes and LifeRay? I think Lutes aims to be primarily for institutional websites, and this means we have to address many considerations that are not part of the standard website. So, for example, accessibility for blind users or people with disabilities. And we have to be able to build very different and complex websites, often interfacing with legacy business requirements. And so this is where the modular part of Lutes comes into play, and it's really a good tool to tackle these problems. So, do you want to take them?
Is there really a community behind this, or just an ecosystem of software vendors? You say so, Smile, Accenture, okay, software vendors,
Yes.
integrators. But is there a really community of contributors?
So the question was, is there really a community of contributors behind Lutes, apart from software companies? So do you mean users of Lutes or people
Lutes
just?
is open source, so one of the assets of open source is to release, not just to give software with the right to use it, but to increase the contribution, to have a community that can grow and help the project to go further.
Yes, so currently we are trying to have the community grow. It is not as big as we want it to be, but we're working on on improving the releases, improving the documentation, improving the communication to grow the community. So currently it's not as good as we want it to be.
Gabriele, maybe you would like to know that Lutes is an OW2 project, which you haven't mentioned. That is going to be a mature project, going through the quality.
So you say that OW2 can help to grow a sort of community, to help.
That's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was added that Lutes is an OW2 project, and it's parts of the things we do to improve the growth of the community.
Lutes is more than 100 digital teleservices for the citizens of Paris, and it is a digital
responsive
design application for apps and smartphones.
So is Lutes the major part of your commitment to open source? The first slides did show a lot of open source projects.
Yes.
And potential for more into your information system.
Perhaps one thing which is really interesting and part of your question before is what the main difference between Lutes and LifeRay now, not in the past but now, is that it's also a framework for public sector back offices. So it's it's becoming the framework of the IT system, of the business apps for public department of the City of Paris, and potentially for many public bodies in France and perhaps in other countries. And I think that's the main difference between Lutes and other enterprise content management system like LifeRay or other tools
That's the first thing. And you mentioned that the first slide. The first slide is the use of open source software at the City of Paris. So it's not only software produced by the City of Paris, but popular open source software that every kind of public or private company can use. Lutes is, and I speak for the City of Paris, but it's the main contribution, but you don't have to see that it's only the framework, but also the business apps that have been developed, which are e-government apps, but also back office apps that can be shared with other public entities. So when you talk about Lutes, you don't want to talk only about a content management system, but also a lot of apps that could be adapted to create their own kind of communities to answer public issues on a day-to-day basis.
So contribution could be new apps, for instance.
So the plugin architecture. Yeah.
For example, there is a graveyard app, because every city in the world have to deal with that. It's not the best example today, obviously, but it's in order to target the fact that it's targeting business issues in public sector, and I think it's the main issue that can be shared between public, local government organization throughout Europe mainly.
Okay. So Lutes represents like a long-term investment of the City of Paris.
Yes.
More than 10 years.
And it's really what represents your open source engagement.
Yes.
And then
Very
around
strong.
Lutes, there is like a propagation of open source choices in other areas of the information system.
That's great.
And do you have like a pledge? I don't want to say a pledge to open source, but is open source identified in the plan informatique?
Yes, it's a strong axis of our IT policy. So,
Okay.
for us and for our elected representatives,
Right.
the mayor or Manuel Grégoire,
Okay.
or deputy representative. Yes.
So yeah, so and I understand it's not
Yes.
only for economic or technology
Yes.
reasons, but also ethical reasons
Yes.
that open source is something that so it's a whole policy.
Yes.
Just one application happened to be good, great, and becoming open source, but it's part of a general environment. Excellent. Okay. That's clear.
It's effectively an engagement for the City of Paris. The City of Paris has launched an ambitious digital and smart city agenda to achieve 3 objectives. Accelerate innovation by technology, but also by introducing citizens into the new project with new relationship and method like social networks, like crowdsourcing, like Rumble, Storyboard, etc. Second objective, the citizen relationship management is the big thing for us today, to improve new ways to collaborate with citizens and Parisians. And third objective, enhance agility with a new method, technical method, fast track for Yon, for example, and fast deploy for our IT colleagues in production, like DevOps or other methods. Sorry. Je reviens ici. Many engagement
two for open innovation in the policies of the city, and in collaboration with large European cities. And Fabien Cauchy have some contact. Fabien, vous avez des contacts avec different international cities, European cities.
During the mission we are conducting, we have addressed different large cities in France and in Europe in order to share specific topics of their digital agendas and to see if open source was part of these digital agendas. It's not always the case. So, the public policies are not always focused on open source software. But what is really interesting is that the main cities in Europe have the same kind of objectives: reducing costs, be more efficient, citizen engagement, enhancements, and open source software can be a part and a significant part of achieving this objective. So there is a strong interest in sharing projects, sharing views between large cities in Europe, which is first, I think, in first part. And sharing views, projects, ideas can be the first step in order to build communities based on the same objective. So it's probably the next step of this open source engagement acceleration of the city of Paris to share objective of their digital agendas and small cities agendas with other large cities in France and Europe in order to build common strategies, perhaps based on open source software and perhaps based on co-building open source software.
Donc, co-producing OS software with other cities. Citizen data protection is an important point for us because we transform data with names, with identities, etc. And we have to protect these data and engage communities around us to follow these objectives and the engagements. So.
Question. There's a question.
Yes.
Question. The digital city and the smart city are very popular across the world. Also, a lot of projects in China about smart cities. Some of the experts on that area in China told me that the grandest challenge of building a smart city using IT and software technologies, how to convince government to really integrate their system, because usually different departments of the city governments, they have their own systems, they are not compatible with each other. You know, it's really hard to integrate everything, put everything together, unless you get full support from the top leader of the city, and personally he has to drive everything together. So do you have any experience on that, how to address that kind of issue?
In the city of Paris, there is a great team between the elected representative, the C-level in the city, and the IT. We think together, we decide together, and we go together. And we put the Parisian, the citizen, in the center. We are very user-centric with the Parisian. And so all our efforts leads to the Parisians.
There is a
more like top-down
Top down.
with
Yes.
political
Yes.
vision
Yeah.
importance of open source
Yes.
commitment.
I have a,
Can
okay.
we move on because I think
No, no, yes,
Mhm.
and I have a comment, but
I know that
later.
let's open the so
Later.
we move on to Aris, please. Okay, and then we can come back to the discussion. That's the relation between IT and the elected people is something I had not have in mind, but it's going to be something important.
This in your pocket.
Most
Okay.
things are common.
Okay, on the table maybe?
So the IT is your operational forever, I mean they're there, whereas the elected teams can change.
Your turn, so, right?
Ja, det tror jeg. Det er et sjovt format, den viser det. Hi, I'm Camilla. As I said before, this presentation isn't going to. Thank you. Isn't going to focus on one software. It's more like a general picture of what we do in Aarhus in in the field of open source. I don't know if you know anything about Aarhus, but it isn't a large city, but it's the second largest in Denmark. And the
Sorry, we decided that above 300,000 it would become.
It's okay. Then we are large enough at
You
least.
just made it.
But we have a big municipality. We have more than 30,000 public employees. So it's a very big institution and a very political one at that, which makes some process rather difficult. For example, open source. Both Niels and I, we work in ITK, which is a department, and it stands for Innovation, Technology, and Innovation again? No, Creativity, I'm sorry. And we focus mainly on development projects, such as we have a Center for Innovation and Open Data Aarhus and E-Regionen, and it's a website where you can borrow ebooks, and it's, open source. And of course we have the open source project. Very, very brief. In 2011, the City Council took an important step in the direction of open source with the decision to introduce a mandatory principle to consider open source in connection with the acquisition of new IT solutions in Aarhus. It's not as easy as it sounds, because a lot of acceptations, like if it's too difficult or too expensive, then you can look the other way, but it's still a step in the right direction. The project was started in 2014, and the goal is to support the spread and the use of open source. The goal isn't to change all software in Aarhus to open source, because that wouldn't be possible, at least not right now, but to get the decision makers to consider open source and not only closed source software, and to take out some of the myths about open source, that it's very risky and it's kind of hippie software, so that's the focus of the project. To come up with some example of what we actually do, then we facilitated the LibreOffice conference this September, and next January we are going to have an internal event in Aarhus called Aarhus Open, and a national conference regarding open source in municipalities. So our focus is mainly strategic and focused on communication and telling the employees about open source solutions and taking the scary part out of open source. So I'm not technical. I can understand some technical stuff, but I cannot do the coding myself. So it's mainly about making open source into human language to make it understandable for the normal citizen and employee in Aarhus. Another thing we are doing is a guide to the acquiring of open source, because if the decision makers is going to consider open source, they need to know, is it my hand movement? Okay. They need to know how to do it. They need to know how to use and implement and choose open source instead of what they have always done. Because Aarhus is a Microsoft municipality. That's what we have been working with for a long time, and it's very difficult to change the way things used to be. And then we are working on a long-term strategy, and it aims to map all the different IT solutions in Aarhus, and when they go to tender, so we in a renegotiation can secure that they come with at least open standards, so they can communicate with other open source applications. So that's the big things we're working at right now. Yeah, the project began in, like I said, 2014, and we made a plan of action of what to do, and it was again most focused on communication. And of course, like everyone else, we want to own our own data. We would like to be independent from our suppliers, at least more independent, and we want to have the option to improve and share our solutions with other municipalities and others in general. And of course, we want to use our money wisely. It's not that easy, but we are trying to take it one step at a time. And just to say it again, we don't want open source everywhere. We want to use it where it creates most value, and so we are not going to confuse our employees with throwing one open source application after them after another. It's a long process, and it takes a lot of time because it's as much a question of cultural change as a technical one, at least in Aarhus. Yeah. This year, the City Council has decided that we have to save money through open source, and it's another good decision, even though we were told in the project that it isn't our goal. We don't have to find this saving, but someone is going to do that, and that's very good. So we're trying to make it visible that open source exists, and we have a network site where we post different open source applications and open source alternatives to to the software we use normally in the different departments. And we have a lot of initiatives and networks, and now Nils will briefly mention some of these, and then we'll come back to some of the challenges we have encountered.
Yeah.
And this is.
I think I need the adapter maybe.
Can I start this? Yeah.
Forget the mic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. As Camilla just mentioned, I'll try and briefly tell you something about our experiences in the past in using open source software and developing open source software in Aarhus. Our department, ITC, is a part of the department involved in cultural, the cultural department basically in Aarhus, which is related to, for example, libraries and cultural institutions. And back in 2009. The libraries in Denmark, the Danish library sector, decided to do something about the infrastructure that at that time was not very. It had some challenges in some sense, mainly concerning how the libraries should present the resources, both physical books, for example, but also, and in particularly, the digital resources. The libraries were very dependent on different vendors, and they were using a lot of different CMS for their websites. And the libraries wanted to basically do something about it and try to rebuild the infrastructure so that they could present the resources in a much more user-friendly way, and also so to try to avoid what you can say the dependence on these different vendors. So what they decided to do was basically to rebuild the infrastructure that supported the Danish libraries. So in the beginning, Aarhus was one of the initiators with Copenhagen and a few other municipalities in Denmark. So this project was a national project, and it was back in 2009. Basically, the idea was to bring back the software to the municipalities, so it was not so it was not the vendors that was in control the different systems and how they were showing the resources for the users. So they decided to rebuild the infrastructure, and one of the things they wanted to do something about was build a new website, a standard website, CMS, that could be used by all libraries in Denmark for free. And the idea was the infrastructure should be service-oriented architecture, so it was not. So it could be used on all sorts of platforms, both laptops and smartphones. So it could be adapted on different platforms, basically. So we built a new infrastructure, and what we did was establish. I just skip these things. We established a community, basically, in Denmark, which we called Ting, and the idea was to build this new infrastructure, and it was based on open source principles. So we were largely inspired by, for example, Drupal and Ubuntu, how they built this community. And these values like collaboration and sharing and contributing were important values in this community. So of course all development was to be open source, and that was basically the starting point of this project. It quickly moved in the direction that a lot of other municipalities partnered up with the project. Not all contributing in the project, but supporting it. We had these partner agreements where you could formally sign it and then support the project, and maybe in a later in the future could maybe be involved in a project that could build something out of these solutions that were developed. This is the infrastructure, how it was rebuilt, basically service-oriented architecture. And I'm not going to go into it. I'm not a technical person, but it shows how it was rebuilt, basically. We have this, what can you call it, a repository with all different content from different suppliers that were shown or given access to the public who are using the library. And that could be digital resources and physical books as well. And they were collecting these data and metadata in a big database, and then indexing them and making them available for building user interfaces on top of this. Yeah, that's basically the idea behind the new infrastructure. Yeah, the results was we had this new infrastructure back in 2011. It was done, and we had version 1 of this CMS website, which could be used by all libraries in Denmark, standard website. And we had this repository. And also later on we had a mobile theme, and later on again we also developed apps specifically for smartphones. Ahead of or later on, this community actually managed to accelerate and foster a lot of different open source projects. That was something we experienced that this community where different municipalities came together and shared ideas and solutions suddenly created this innovation, and new solutions were coming up, and then suddenly new projects were established and using the open source idea and doing it in that sense, basically. This is an example of the library, one of the library websites that is being used by one of the municipalities supporting the community. Another website, as you can see, it's similar to the other. So it's a standard website, but there's still the possibility to develop different plugins or whatever. This is for Aarhus, Copenhagen. E-Reolen, which Camilla mentioned earlier, is a website showing or giving access to e-books and audiobooks for the public. And that's also built on this infrastructure, and it's a national service that all libraries in Denmark can use, and the public, of course. Palace Gavebod is a portal aimed at the youth, youngsters, which is also built on this infrastructure. And basically since 2009 and until 2013, this Tink community really basically were growing really fast, and my role in it was I was kind of like a community manager with some other people in different municipalities. We worked together on supporting and building up this community, and in the end we had 50 library partners, municipalities supporting the community, not all contributing, but supporting the community, and also different vendor partners also participating in the community. Back in 2013, the Tink project was evaluated by the state of Denmark, and it was decided to use the website, the Tink website that the libraries were using to be a part of what they called the Danish Digital Library, which was can you call it a project that wanted to give all the libraries in Denmark an infrastructure that they could use and that would support basically the work that they were doing of communicating to the citizens and basically giving them the best user experience, and they chose the website as to be one of those products that were going to be used in this Danish digital library, and that was a success for the project, you can say. That was fantastic for us, and also this project has, as I mentioned earlier, really made a fundamental change in how we start new projects in ours, and specifically in the library sector. Basically, our mindset has changed a bit. Now we think more like this product. We have an idea maybe, but then the next step is also how can we bring in other municipalities to help develop this thing, so we can make it better and cheaper, and we can share it with others. That has been a big change in how we do things specifically in Aarhus. So as you can see there in the last point there, that it has been a catalyst for innovation, basically. That's our experience. So you can say this TINK project is something that started this process that since led to this open source Aarhus project. So specifically for ITC and this department we work in, we have a lot of experience in thinking open source and see the potential in using open source. And now we are trying to spread this mindset in our city. Some of the other initiatives and projects that came out of this TINK project is this is specific solutions. For example, we made this project or product called BibOS, which is about using open source on public library computers. It was also a national project that we did with different municipalities in Denmark. And basically what it is a desktop Ubuntu desktop that's being used on all public library computers in Aarhus and also different municipalities in Denmark. And also there's a back-end solution supporting it, so you can remote management these computers, and that's also completely open source and published on GitHub. Another thing is Info Channel. That's what we call it. Is basically a platform for showing content on large screens, and that's also been developed in open source. And another project that came out of TINK or was inspired by TINK is a project called OS2, which is basically TINK but on a municipality level, if you can say that like that, because TINK was derived from the library sector. OS2 is more focused on the broader municipality sector, basically. But it was very inspired by OS2, and we are also part of this community. And this is right now building up. A lot of municipalities is joining this community, so we are going to see a lot of solutions coming out of this community in the next few years. Open Data Aarhus, which I think Camilla mentioned also, which is focused on basically giving access to public data in Aarhus. And there's also a national collaboration in this as well, where Aarhus is collaborating with other municipalities in Denmark. So basically, this is some of the initiatives that is going on right now, so we do have some experience in using open source and thinking open source, but we still have a long way to go. Definitely in particular regarding open source in Aarhus, that's a big challenge for us there. So.
Just to name one of the biggest challenges, because you can see the time has flown away. Yeah, the biggest challenge in Aarhus, at least, is the big fence we've built around the city in terms of contract and those standards. It's very difficult to have this fence down because all the software is tightly connected. So you cannot take one of the solutions out, because then all the others aren't going to function, because they can only communicate with each other. So it's one of the biggest challenges in Aarhus. We tried to, we didn't try, we talked about changing Microsoft Office to LibreOffice, But we had to use a lot of money on Microsoft Office again because of all the programs surrounding it, our mail system, calendar system, the way we book our rooms, the way we get paid. They are all connected, so we cannot take this giant in the middle out before all the others have the open standards. And that has to do with the long-term strategy I talked about.
Yeah, basically we have what you can say, a high degree of login because we use a lot of the Microsoft products like SharePoint and Office, and they are tightly integrated. So it's really difficult to try to rebuild this infrastructure. So it's a long process that we've started, and this long-term strategy that Camilla mentioned is part of trying to do something about it.
And we would like this network to maybe help out there. We could share knowledge and tips and tricks and good practices on how to push open source in public institutions. And that was our time, I think.
Yeah.
I think we should ask questions while Romero is...
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
The question I had was about security and more the center of excellence that you built. How did you build the processes, the way of working for sharing the value and the use of that value inside your community?
You said you were inspired by Drupal and how the communities. Any specific mechanisms you could
in different aspects. Part of it was how we were organized, like the governance. And also, some of the ideas about, for example, a code of conduct. We've written a code of conduct that all partners has to basically sign into. And also trying to keep representative governance like they do in Drupal, and try to let everyone has a say basically in the community, and a few other things like have this core team and coding guidelines that makes it easier to basically develop solutions. I don't know if that answered your question, but
with the money for
we did have we built an organization or a governance structure that had like different teams focusing on different solutions. Like we had a team focusing on the website, the CMS, and they met regularly discussing how they should go ahead. And we had a website that was basically the center for the community, where we communicated about everything, and the developers could use that.
Hello, good morning. My name is Eduardo Romero from Zaragoza City Council. It's not easy for me to talk in English because I never do this in Spain, but well. Zaragoza is a big city in Spain. We have around 700,000 people. And we started to use open source software in the year 2005. And this picture represents that moment. It's a long road, very beautiful landscape, some clouds here, maybe rain. And in this year, all the political parties, our organization, decided all together to improve, to promote, to encourage the use of the open source inside our organization. This is our context. We use open source in data center, we made code with open source language. We use open source in the web with citizens. We try to promote open source with our citizens. But I work in the desktop department, and I stay here to talk about the use of open source in the desktop, in the final use, the end users, the computers that work with every day. We have around 3,000 computers spread around the city in different locations, more than 100 different places. We have more than 100 servers. And in the year 2005, we need to make a plan, because we have a big handicap. Before this year, we didn't use open source. We use Microsoft tools, mainly in the desktop. And we decided to make a plan, and we divided our project in 3 main steps. The first step is to migrate little application. For example, web browser. We choose Mozilla Firefox instead of Microsoft Internet Explorer. We choose an open source like Thunderbird for the email client, and multimedia applications, graphic applications. We try to migrate that kind of application that are easy for us to migrate. For example, if you it's a little change for the user to migrate from Internet Explorer to Mozilla Firefox. The second step of the project is a little bit more difficult. The step is we migrate our Office productivity suite from Microsoft Office in that moment to OpenOffice. Today we use LibreOffice. And it's a little bit more difficult because we need to adapt, to make some transformation in macro language, in mail merge. We started to use a new file format, open document format. Maybe it's the key point of this step. And in the year 2009, 2010, we started the third part of the plan, is to migrate our operating system. The two first steps is in the base of Microsoft operating system, and in this point we started to migrate to the operating system. We choose in the first moment we choose a Linux SUSE distribution, but in the last 3 or 4 years we choose Ubuntu distribution. And now we have around 1,200 computers with Linux, and still we have 1,800 computers still with Microsoft operating system. Our target is to reach to 80 or 90% of the computers in Linux distribution in the next 3 or 4 years. You need all other little projects or steps. You need to make an inventory. You need to know what hardware and what software you have in your organization. You need to make a plan about training technical people or end users. You need to make a communication plan to explain people why we change. You need to adapt the support. You need to buy some hardware to renew. And you need resources. As I said before, you need to to train people, to train end users, but also you need to train technical people, because we didn't use open source tools before. You need to buy some hardware. We use the hardware as a stimulus. We try to offer the new hardware as a gift for the users. If you change the operating system from Microsoft to Linux, change the screen, put a new computer, and it's a present, it's a gift for the user. And the user are more happier. We increase our staff in 6 people more, local people, and we need to use local companies for some consulting, technical consulting. For us, this is the more difficult step. Migrate Office platform. In Spain, there are a law that say that public administration should use open standards, fortunately. But a lot of public administration don't use this law, and we work with open document, but other administration around us don't use it, and it's difficult for us. We need to adapt macros, and this is a point very difficult for us. We have a large amount of application developed in Microsoft Access, and we don't have a easy way to transform to other. We need to make a big effort to transform this application. Also, we have a lot of application that only runs in Windows in operating system. We need to find other alternative application, or we need to use Wine or VirtualBox to still use this application. This is the advantage of the use for us. This is the advantage of using open source. We are more independent. We have more independence about the technology. The open source are are more flexible, because we have access to the code. We can change the code. We don't need to pay license. This is the main point for the people that manage the money, but I think it's not the most important point. I think the technology and flexibility are more important than this point, but also is important. We use open formats, as I said before, national law. We don't have people working in a zoo with virus. All our Linux computers don't use antivirus. And we have local benefits. We employ people that live in Zaragoza. The knowledge men are in Zaragoza. It's important that if you save money here, put the money here in knowledge-man. And we have learning from mistakes. Food. Do you know what is food? Fear, uncertainty, and DAP. It's not high, it's Yes. People don't want to change, doesn't want to change. It's difficult for people. You need to make a big effort in training, to teach people the new skills. Changes are not irrelevant. I think a lot of enthusiastic people of open source say that the changes are easy, not easy, change to open source. It's not trivial to change to open source, but we can do it. And it takes time. If you work slow, I think it's better. If you work fast, I think our project works slow, but I think it's good for us. And you need to change your point of view about the software library. You said before the mindset. You need to change the mindset. You need to work in community. You need you need to change the attitude. The attitude before was download acknowledgement, but now you can download acknowledgement, but you need to upload code. You need to upload acknowledgement. You need to work in community. In Spain, we work with Enatic. We make some documents about our change. We make code in some products. You need to, it's a community, you need to apport, not only to download. And this is finally the three main points. Can be done. Can be done. Not trivial, but you can do it. Sure. If you have a good project management. You need resources, okay, managed properly, and you need support from the top. You need to seek and obtain support from the top managers. It's very difficult to make changes with that support from top managers. And don't be afraid. Don't worry. It's snow. Okay? Just snow. Okay? And this is our webpage, our email, Twitter. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. I can tell they've been through it, long experience, because to explain all that so clearly and thoroughly,
thank you.
Looks really you're in control.
Hmm?
It looks you're in control. I mean, you can feel the experience. Long-term experience. You started all this in 2005.
2005 is the year the political group says that we need to use open source. We started the project 2006, slowly.
But it was a top-down decision.
Yes, top-down. It's important, top-down.
And you've had resistance from the proprietary software vendors? Did you have to fight?
No, not much.
Or you
No.
just did your thing?
We work slow and we don't have noise. We work slowly and
How did you do it? What's the trick?
I don't know.
Persistence.
No, it's
Persistence.
And top down.
I think you need you need to find the technical people that are inside the organization. You need to find the technical people that are involved with the project. I don't know how to say.
But was this driven by a team of how many people were pushing this?
We have a team of 6-7 people working in that area. Desktop, open source, focus in the.
Local consulting.
Yes.
Where are you based? Where are you based?
Ah, Zaragoza, sí.
Zaragoza.
Sí, sí.
Okay. Questions? Other questions? Well, I think one of the key points is that we have had the political decision from the top to do this. That's really important, and that's where we see maybe the challenge in Aarhus, where we don't have maybe what you can say full support for it yet. But if you have that from the beginning, it gives a boost basically. Yeah.
It's very important, very important.
There's another thing I've noticed is you talked about libraries. Then here you talked about Lutes supporting 200 applications and different services. And you talked about desktops.
Desktops.
But desktops are in one service, or is it across all?
Across all over.
Everywhere in the.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere in all departments.
Does that mean that an open source strategy has to be? Can you have developed an open source strategy in one sector of the information system in the administration, or if you decide to do it, it will have to be everywhere across the board?
I don't know if I don't understand your question. Háblame en español si quieres.
No, because they said it's for the libraries.
Yes.
So you are in the libraries, and then you moved up in 2014 to this open source strategy. Here in Paris with Lutes, they have Lutes, which is like the main driver for the open source. It's one thing. So it's like
I think it's
and you have the desktop. So we need to start somewhere. That's it means like you have a beachhead and do something in one corner.
No acabo de entenderte.
¿No entiendes?
No.
The question is did you start with one part of the organization?
Yes.
Yeah.
Desktop.
And then
Ah.
desktop. I mean, in Zaragoza you have multiple.
Yes, multiple departments. Yes.
So the question is, did you start with one?
No.
Did you
Stop. All.
And then
For all.
over the departments, you have also some other administrations. Is it only the city, or around the city you have other administrations that are connected?
Other administration in Spain. In Spain, open source. The administration, I think the local public administration don't use open source mainly. The educational environment, its national education environment, is very widely used. There are a lot of computers in the schools with open source, with Linux, in communities in Aragón, in Valencia, in Andalucía, in Catalonia.
I have a provocative comment about how the future of open source in big cities, because we have an example of municipalities that are making open source.